Welcome back to Let's Talk Apprenticeships. We are talking about performance reviews and the probation period in Season 2, Episode 5.
Yes.
So, how long does a probation period go for, and what is a probation period?
Okay, so we spoke about apprenticeship contract early on and in previous episodes. So it's a 3-month period, or we say the 12-week period, where either parties, which is the employer or the apprentice, can get out of this contract without any obligations. So it could be a no reason cancellation of an apprenticeship. Once you cross that 3-month period, it becomes binding. Now, there is a provision to extend the contract, okay? And for that, I think it's important that you have a good performance review system in place, which is leading into that. So to answer your question, it's 3 months or 12 weeks.
Yeah, that's it. And can they be for 6 months?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
So if you extend it with prior consent, so you can extend it before it expires by mutual consent.
Yeah. All right. And what are some things that apprentices or employers should do during this this probation period?
I think it's the probation period, like any other probation period, is to confirm the recruitment, whether you've selected the right person, and likewise for the employee or the apprentice to ascertain whether they have made the right choice with the apprenticeship or with the employer. So one of the highly recommended actions is that you have a good performance plan. I know it's a short period, but it's good to have a little performance plan where you have some key performance indicators. And in simple terms, some objectives which you expect the apprentice to meet, for which you will support that apprentice to. Okay? So just to explain it simply, you make a simple performance form with 4 or 5 goals in it. And it could be like, health and safety, work health and safety could be one KPI. There could be code of conduct, which is the apprentice complying enough. There could be off-the-job training. So are they attending the college and are they coping with the instructions and the training? On-the-job training, which can include their work performance, right? And then you got teamwork, where you could also assess them on how are their abilities to work within a team. And then you could have things like communication and interpersonal skills. And obviously we can talk each one of them as we go.
Yeah, that's it. So something that I really like to point out to some apprentices as well, and even just whatever job they're in, the probation period is for the apprentice or the employee as much as it is for the employer.
Yep.
Yeah. So with that, you can say after the first month, hey, this is not what I thought it was, and get out of there.
Yes.
There's no contract. Like, there is a contract in place, but in that contract, there is the probation period.
Yes. Now, to be fair on the apprentice, or any employee for that matter, one should let them know, make them aware of the expectations.
Yeah.
Because the apprenticeship has its own expectations of sincerely participating in the training, on and off the job training. But some organizations will also have some behavioral expectations. They have their own company goals. And very often apprentices are not made aware of them. Or even if they are, it's not understood well by the apprentice.
Yeah.
So the temptation is to apply the general performance plan used for any other employee to the apprentice. Well, you can do that past the probation, but I think during the probation period, keep it simple. So the purpose of that probationary performance review is to ascertain whether this relationship can be continued or not. So it needs to be simple yet definitive.
Yeah.
Right? And I often say by the first week, end of the first week, you should have sat down with the apprentice. Now, when I say you, it's usually the supervisor. Should sit down, familiarize them with the performance objectives, and make sure they understand it well.
Yeah. And even just coming into the apprentice side of this, like, if you're hearing this and you're like, oh, my employer hasn't done this for me, you can take that into your own hands and say, hey, what are my goals for this probation period? What are the expectations of me? I have so many apprentices and people talk to me about how, oh, I don't think I'm performing well. I'm like, what are you measuring that against? So you need to have a measurement, be like, hey, you know, in the probation period, what are they looking for? You to turn up on time, you to pay attention, and you to ask questions. If that's what they're looking for and you've got that information from them, then no, you don't need to be rebuilding engines in your first 3 months. You need to be turning up on time, asking lots of questions. And I can't even remember the third thing I said already. But you need to just do those simple things. So lots of people put that higher expectation on themselves and then they believe they're not doing well. But knowing those expectations and those goals for yourself, even at any level, is really important.
And I think, Greg, you mentioned attendance. That could be one of the KPIs. You know, within the probationary period, you could see whether the apprentice has been absent. And that's okay to be absent if that's a valid reason. But certainly, as an employer, you can know what's the reason, whether you know it's personal or illness or whatever. Now, you also mentioned about extension of probationary period earlier. Sometimes the apprentice may have an injury or something, either at work or as well. Then the probation period gets extended.
We can talk. So there's some things that can extend probation periods.
Yes.
Extend it. So you've got all your annual leave. So taking your annual leave and your standard sick leave won't extend your probation period because that's in the contract. Not your probation period, your whole apprenticeship and your probation period, that's in the contract. But some things that can extend the probation period and in turn might extend your apprenticeship, injuries. So usually that counts as your apprenticeship being put on pause. And also falling pregnant, that maternity leave kind of thing can also either extend your probation period or pause your apprenticeship.
That's there. Now, coming back to the performance review itself, I mean, my recommendation is that you have a good performance plan, which is easy to read. And if you set it up in the first week, review it after 4 weeks, see how they performed. So they've understood what is expected in the first week. By 4th week, you should review that with the immediate supervisor, and they should give comments. In that, you should also let the apprentice comment on it. So that is, because the apprentice might think, I'm doing really well in safety. Well, the supervisor thinks, often forgets to put on the safety glasses. Often, he's wearing hand jewelry or something, and which is a breach, or housekeeping is not up to standard. So then, apprentice thinks I'm going great. Supervisor not so great, and then they can discuss the gaps. So give them understanding of the gaps and how to fix those gaps and how to improve. Then you can have a second lot of review at the 7-week period, where then you see, I gave them feedback, have they improved? And then that will give you a good understanding whether they have the ability to take feedback and improve on it against those KPIs. And then I would say the penultimate review for that period is the 10-week review, where the supervisor and the apprentice both should be able to establish whether it's worth going forward or not. So that you still have a couple of weeks to then sort out, if it's a separation or keeping on with this apprenticeship.
Yeah, that's it. And usually, put this in the hands of the employer. It's good to be proactive about these kind of things. But as the apprentice, if you kind of are like, I wonder where I'm at, you can always ask. You can be always like, hey, to your supervisor, hey, can you sit down with me for 5 minutes? I just want to touch base on how I'm going. It doesn't have to be super formal, but if you do want that feedback, you can ask for it.
Cool. Now, while we're discussing, I don't want to be talking a lot about the KPIs, but just to tease out what you and me think about the KPIs and how they should be worded in a way. Now, often when you adapt KPIs from employee performance review to apprentice, you tend to keep the wording very heavy. I would simplify that for the apprentice. For example, follow safe work practices is the KPI at all, or adhere to the safety policy could be a KPI. But under that, you list some action items. So it could be, completing a job safety analysis could be one. Wearing your PPE at all times could be another one. So give some action items to the apprentice which they can understand. All right. Any thoughts on the safety one?
No, I think that's pretty good. Even we talked a bit before about the cleaning. Often that is something that you get measured off in that first 3 months. So, actually doing the tasks, not complaining too much, doing them well so they don't have to be redone. That kind of thing can also be part of that safety and that performance review.
Now, in terms of feedback, Louise, I think supervisors should correct them as they go. Yes, you can make a note of that for the sit-down discussion.
And also to fix it straight away.
Yes.
So, like, often things happen and you might not get told until that sit-down review. But say if the supervisor says, hey, yesterday you, like, forgot to put your safety glasses on, or you didn't isolate that truck, or you left the place a bit of a mess, then the apprentice can fix it straight away.
Yes.
Rather than doing it for 2-3 weeks before this formal review is happening.
Absolutely. Another one is like behaviors. Now, we often say a complete tradesperson is a combination of great skills and great behaviors, right? So workplace behavior is important. Now, with most companies now having a strict code of conduct, now sometimes it is that you have a no swearing policy. You have never articulated that to the apprentice. So they might, stretch it. So if you can clarify things would be great. And so goes on with other competencies. So in a nutshell, performance review is a good approach, provided you explain it well and you review it well and timely, and you give them feedback and give them opportunity to improve. And if there is, if the improvement is not meeting the expectations, then probation period is the time to call it quits and end on a good note.
Yeah, that's it. And then also as the apprentice, you can ask for feedback to then be able to keep improving, in the probation period and also outside of the probation period.
Perfect. So, Louise, I think this probably is a wrap for this episode and also the wrap for season 2, I think. So do you want to quickly summarize season 2 for us?
Yeah, so season 2, we started the apprenticeship. We talked about the contract, which can be a really heavy subject, but we hope we made it quite easy for people to understand. And like we said, we're always here to answer questions. We did the training plan, so what they're obliged to do, what's actually in the training plan. Making the best of your training, so some tips and tricks on how to learn in different scenarios. And then also now we've been talking about this probation period and performance reviews, getting feedback, that all of these combined can really help you set you up for success for your apprenticeship. A lot of these things come up in your first 3 months. And you know what, even though we did talk about a lot, we do know that there's so much else to talk about as well. So if you think that anything's been missed that you're yearning to hear from us, and we can get to it pretty quickly in season 3, if you just let us know. Otherwise, we're going to keep on in season 3. We'll touch on, the rest of the first year, some other tips and tricks after your probation period, and keep going like that.
Yes, and as we say with Let's Talk Apprenticeship, it's talking all things apprenticeships. And we got some feedback after season 1, which we've incorporated in season 2. So as Louis said, just let us know what you want to know about, and we're happy to bring to you the best we can. All right? And reach out if you need any help, employers, apprentices alike. No questions, silly question. Happy to help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting us. And once again, thanks to Breed Sunrise Studio for letting us use this fabulous studio, which was inaugurated very recently.
Yeah.
And I encourage anyone to go onto the website and breedoz.com.au and book this studio.
That's it. And me and Raman both have our own specialties in supporting apprentices and tradespeople. So I support mostly tradeswomen and tradespeople through coaching, mentoring, and professional development. So you feel free to comment below to contact me if you feel like you need any of those services. And Raman, what do you offer?
Look, mostly employers and training organizations, but even apprentices if they need any help. I'm happy to help. But mostly with employers to design their programs, maybe design a performance review, or even onboarding program. If you want me to design your onboarding program,
Raman runs a really good onboarding program.
All right. That's a testimony from one of the people who've experienced it. Maybe both of us will run a program for you well. All right. So take care and happy apprenticeships.
Bye.
Bye.